So, you've defied the odds and made it to the NHL. Now, how do you stay there? Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, bet on Betway. 19 plus, please play responsibly. No one knows staying power quite like today's guest, Matt Cullen, fresh off of his induction into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Cullen has the rare distinction of being just one of 21 players in NHL history to compete in over 1,500 career regular season games. Here's the catch. He's the only one of the 21 that has never been selected to an All-Star game. How do you make it that long? Cullen grew up in Virginia, Minnesota before moving to Moorhead just on the border with North Dakota, where he still lives today, and his son plays high school hockey at the same rink and for the same team that he did as a youngster. It really is just that. When you listen to our conversation with Cullen today about videotaping his skating after he was criticized coming through the draft and college process as being a poor skater, they were in the mid-90s getting handheld camcorders and recording themselves in the summer and then breaking down the tape to just try and get better. Countless thousands of hours spent on their backyard outdoor rink. Him and his two brothers, his sister also played. His dad growing up played professionally, Terry, and was also a high school hockey coach and coached Matt. So much to dive into with Matt Cullen, a three-time Stanley Cup champion, winning with two different organizations, the Carolina Hurricanes in 2006, and also back-to-back years with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2016 and 2017. By the way, after almost 2 decades of service in the NHL, Matt Cullen was considering retiring before Jim Rutherford called him in 2015 to bring him to join the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they did not start off that well that year. If you remember, it was a mid-season coaching change, Mike Sullivan coming in, that helped change that team's fortunes and Cullen's fortunes, who got to share those 2 Stanley Cup runs with his young sons. So much to dive into with Matt Cullen. I won't keep you waiting. Here's my conversation with 3-time Stanley Cup champion, Matt Cullen. Matt Cullen, first and foremost, congratulations, U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer. How does that sound? Are you still coming to grips with that?
Yeah, thanks. No, it's just one of those things that you probably never really fully come to grips with, but it's it was a great honor. It was a great event. The night was awesome. It was really cool that it was in Pittsburgh, and the whole thing has been just really cool. Yeah.
So the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame is in Eveleth, Minnesota, which is just down the road from where you were born and I guess lived for a few years growing up as a kid. Did you make it to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame? And now will you go back at some point to see your name enshrined there?
Yeah, we used to go every now and then. Back when I was a young one, we lived nearby there till I was about 10 years old. So yeah, we it's kind of funny just like how things kind of come full circle on this stuff, but it's that's where I was born and kind of grew up for part of my childhood. And yeah, probably will get back. Like we're back here in Minnesota, so we end up that way for hockey stuff with my boys. So yeah, it'd be fun to poke your head in there and see it.
Nice. So we'll unpack your time as a hockey dad a little bit later on, but I just want to talk about the beginnings as we sort of work toward your career of, kind of what it was like growing up in Hockey Mad, Minnesota, and also kind of part of, Minnesota hockey royalty. Like one of my favorite things is going through Elite Prospects, and you go to your page or even go to your son's page and, you see all the family connections and everyone that's played. Just tell me what your childhood was like.
Yeah, we grew up in Minnesota here, obviously, and all of my friends and my whole family. I have 2 brothers and a sister. We all played hockey. Dad did the backyard rink. We played outdoors, and that's probably like where I fell in love with the game, was just playing outside. I think it's hard to even put into words if people haven't experienced it, what it's like playing outside at night with your buddies on the rink. So kind of grew up doing that. My dad was a high school hockey coach. He played professional hockey. So I just sort of grew up talking hockey around the dinner table. We'd play hockey in the basement. We'd play hockey in the backyard, just kind of that was our life, and we loved it. And all of our buddies played hockey. So had the experience of playing in the state high school tournament 3 times here, which, the Minnesota State high school tournament is a pretty unique experience for any kid going through high school. And I mean, if you're a hockey lover, it's like one of those kind of sort of bucket list deals. It's kind of cool to see it. It's really hard to describe it. So I had that experience and then went on to play college. So yeah, growing up in Minnesota was, for a hockey kid, I grew up at the rink with my dad. It was great. It was just a great childhood, like, for a hockey player.
Did anyone in your family not play hockey?
Yeah. Well, my sister, who probably was the best athlete in our family, they didn't really have girls hockey when she was kind of like right on the front side of it. So she was a gymnast, and then she actually ended up winning at Concordia College here. She won a Division II diving national diving championship. She's a really good athlete, super, super competitive. So she's kind of the only one in our family that didn't get to play hockey. She would have been a good hockey player, I think, but she didn't have the chance.
So your high school hockey experience, you mentioned you got to play in the state tournament 3 times. Were you playing for your dad?
Yep. He was the coach throughout my high school career. My brother Mark ended up playing in the NHL for a while. He was 2 years younger than I was, so we played together my final year of high school. So that was kind of a fun experience. But yeah, all 3 years, I think we finished second twice and third once. So those are kind of still stings a little bit, but good experiences.
So what was Terry Cullen like as a hockey coach?
He was good. So he was it's interesting. He was like, a little bit ahead of his time. He was really focused on skill development for players. So it was really good for us. Like, we spent a lot of time working on skills, and he tried to kind of teach some like ideas as far as give and go 2-on-1 style hockey, which I think, ended up a lot of kids that played for him went on to play at pretty high levels. And it was good for us because it taught us how to play the game at a higher level. And so I enjoyed it. He held guys accountable, so he was probably considered a hard coach, which I think was probably served us well. We learned how to work hard. We didn't have a lot of easy practices, so learned a lot from him, and it served me well. It kind of helped me understand the value of work, and if you want to get places, you got to put in more work than other people. So learned kind of the foundation of the game. I learned from him.
Was he a little bit harder on you because you're his son? Did
No
you get
question,
that
yeah.
experience? Like I played for my dad growing up,
Yeah.
and I always felt like I got the short end of the stick no matter what.
Yeah. I think that's probably something you sign up for when your dad's a coach. I think we all kind of sort of grew to expect it. And he talked to us before the season, and he would say that, like, hey, I'm probably going to be a little harder on you than most just because that's how it works. And it was good. It was understood, and it was, really probably welcomed in a way. I mean, obviously it's not fun when you're getting barked at if you make a mistake or if you're being lazy or whatever, but it was something that I think probably long-term, when you look back at it, it serves you well. You get a little bit of a thicker skin, and, I ended up playing for some tough coaches in the NHL, and it served me well. It helped me to handle that sort of thing a lot better.
Yeah, no doubt. And then to take what you were learning on formal ice time with him, but then also to kind of come home and be able to do some of that. And obviously he's helping maintain the rink and all those things. So he's out there a bunch too. I mean, it's kind of around the clock, no?
Yeah, it was fun. And I think you just kind of, you get a different level of understanding the game probably. I mean, I remember we'd sit at the dinner table and he'd pull out a napkin and draw out an idea of a play he saw when he was watching the North Stars play, or, whatever. Like, little things like that probably you just don't think that much of as a kid, but when you look back on it, you realize it was a pretty unique hockey upbringing, and you get new ideas and you're thinking about the game, and it's just kind of like part of the fabric of your growing up.
Mm-hmm. So you get a chance to play at St. Cloud State, and obviously your dad, you mentioned, played professionally, so his background and history was extensive. But when did you kind of really begin to have that twinkle in your eye that you thought, like, hockey might work out for you?
Yeah. So, that's, probably after high school was over. I suppose my senior year of high school, I started getting a thought that could be possible. I didn't really have anybody from home that had done that. I guess the one guy that I looked at as a Minnesota high school guy at that time was Neil Broughton, who had an awesome career and was a Minnesota high school kid. He played in Roseau, Minnesota, up north here. But there wasn't like a lot of people to sort of look to for kind of guideposts along the way. So it just always felt like a dream out there. It never felt like something that was a potential reality, I guess, until like near the end of my senior year. There was starting to be some conversation about the draft, and but it was kind of before like, NHL, like NHL on the Fly or NHL Network. We were on ESPN, the NHL was, but we didn't, where I lived, it just for whatever reason, we didn't get a lot of NHL hockey. So I was more high school and college was kind of on my mind as a kid. It's a lot different now, obviously.
Well, I was going to say, so maybe in an odd way was like getting to, as growing up, you're like, all I want to do is play in the Minnesota State tournament. And that's my goal. When did that like shift to the next thing? I guess maybe you answered that.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So like, I guess about the time where I was getting ready to go to college, and then it became, the draft was coming up the next summer for me. And so I guess then that kind of hit home like, okay, well, probably got a good chance of getting drafted, and, can start considering the idea of playing after college. So then I went to St. Cloud, and I was drafted after my first year. And then I played one more year after that, and then I turned pro and went out to Anaheim.
So as you're now, working in the development coach space with the Penguins, I'm curious if you look back on your path, why do you think you were able to break through and make it? Like, if we look back at your game, not the biggest guy, definitely a skilled player, but not the most skilled player on your team. You're not running guys over. What do you think helped set you apart during that path?
Probably, I think willingness to work, I think, was a big thing. And I attribute that to my dad. I learned how to work at a young age, and I was really okay with it. I liked the hard work, the off-season stuff. So when I was drafted, I was kind of considered a poor skater. That was sort of part of, what I wasn't great at, I guess. And so I learned to start working at that at a younger age, probably than most people, especially at that time. It was a little before like everybody was really dialed on their nutrition and their training. And so I was lucky. I was on the front end of that. I was introduced to some really good people that helped me train and learn how to train. And I learned to like really enjoy the training. So I think I probably got into like the mindset early, which, now, you talk about like a growth mindset. I think I was probably in that at a younger age just because of the people I was around. And so I was constantly looking to improve my skating and adapt my game as I went, because I didn't have anybody where I was like, okay, I'm going to be just like that guy. I was just kind of trying to figure it out on my own as a young guy. And I had some hard coaches early. So I think probably the biggest piece was that willingness to just go every summer, go home and just try to get better and get faster. And that ended up serving me well because that allowed me to stay in the game for so long. But that, and I just think a willingness to adapt. I mean, I was not a top guy, so I had to learn how to be valuable to a team and kind of be, I guess, humble enough to accept whatever I got. I tried to be the best at whatever role I was given, and I think that served me well. And just that constant trying to improve and add to your game, I think that allowed me to kind of just adapt and add to my game. And then the game changed a lot throughout my career, so I was forced to.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned the college process and then also going through the draft process. Do you remember any like biting criticism that you got? Like what would someone say about your skating?
Well, that was the biggest one. Like I had good hands and a pretty good head for the game, and I was good size. I was probably, I don't know, 6'1", 195 pounds coming into the draft. So I was a good size centerman. But that was the biggest thing. It was just that, and it was fair. I mean, I wasn't a great skater. I was like kind of just didn't have a lot of power, and I didn't have a lot of explosiveness. I was pretty good with the puck and had good ideas, but I wasn't fast. And I kind of agreed with it. That was the biggest criticism on my game, was just that I wasn't fast, which was fair. And my skating wasn't pleasing to the eye, I would say. So it was something that I recognized and I agreed. And, but I was pretty determined to change it. And I did. It was, so my brothers and I would skate in the summer, and so we bought a handheld camcorder, one of those that you like hold. Mm. And so we would video ourselves skating in the summer. We didn't have skating coaches or anything like that. So we just videoed it and studied it and just would talk about it constantly all summer, and we'd train and we'd work on our stride. And, slowly but surely it just kind of kept getting better and better. And it always put a smile on my face when I would hear people talking about my skating being one of my strengths later in my career. It was one of the things I was most proud of because it was just through hard work, So it always felt good to hear that, because it was like, a lot of time behind the scenes went into it.
Yeah, I bet that felt good, but just having your brothers there to push you at the same time, it's one thing to have the support from your parents, but then your brothers kind of going through it with you. How much did that help?
Yeah, I mean, it made it fun. Like we'd work hard. We'd spend all day at the rink and in the gym, and we had so much fun. And that you go home in the summer and you kind of reboot, and we just put in so much time. But we had fun. So like, it never felt like work. We were at the rink, we were working on our game. There was nothing else in our life that really we were worried about. It was like, that was our entire focus. And man, we had so much fun. We spent hours and hours working on skating. We'd watch video and make fun of each other and then go back and try to work on it the next day. And it was just a great, like, I mean, we had it made. We had the rink to ourselves. We could skate as much as we wanted. We could lift as much as we wanted. We had a great setup, but we were just really lucky that way.
But it sounds funny to say, but that was so next level then. Like, how many kids were recording their own skating sessions and reviewing their own video? But more than that, we're also talking a period of time in the mid 90s when guys, even NHL players, didn't skate that much in the summer. You'd come home, you'd put your bag down, you'd do your off-season training, you'd stay in shape, you'd lift, you'd do whatever, but they didn't start skating till August, mid-August, before coming back to play. Like, you're on the ice all summer.
Yep. We would take 2 weeks off. And then we get started in the gym, and then probably after 2 weeks in the gym, we'd get back on the ice and get going. And we had an awesome schedule. Like, we would get up in the morning, have some breakfast. We'd go do our footwork, agility, run. We have one hill in Fargo Moorhead. It's like, where we live is really flat, and there's one hill. So we'd go to the hill and run, and then we'd come home and have lunch, and then we'd go back and we'd go lift, and then we'd skate. And that was kind of our day every day, with sort of subtle differences. And then we come home and grill steaks or burgers or whatever. And so we had it kind of made, and ended up being about the perfect schedule that you could ask for as a kid trying to develop. And looking back, like I said, we had so much fun. I mean, we just never thought of it as work. It was just every day, and the summers were great because we loved doing it.
Mm-hmm. So you go from St. Cloud, and then one season later, you're playing in the NHL. I know we talked about how, you thought that might be a possibility at some point in time, but then to kind of make the jump that quickly, is it because of the preparation, you think, that enabled you to step in?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of like, having put in a lot of work. But also I was given a great opportunity. I mean, coming into Anaheim, I was given a really good opportunity. I had time with Teemu Selanne in my rookie season. I played with some really good guys early on, and was kind of given an opportunity to use my abilities. And like, you just don't know. Back then it was a little different. Guys would really have to earn their place, and lots of guys would have to grind on the fourth line for a long time, and you had to prove your worth. Whereas it's shifted a little bit now, where guys are plugged into spots that they're probably meant for. Back then, I mean, I remember playing against Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg when they were on the fourth line in Detroit. I mean, it was a different way of doing things. Whether it's better or worse, that's not the conversation. But so I was given some good opportunity early, and there was a lot of bumps along the road. I was 2 years of college, so I was 2 years removed from high school hockey, and I had a lot to learn. But I was given a good opportunity, and Anaheim was really good to me.
So we talked about your path and some of the help that you'd gotten along the way from family at varying points throughout your NHL career with teams. And we'll talk about your relationship with Jim Rutherford, but who are some other people that helped you along the way that you really relied on?
Man, there's a lot. It's it was actually fun kind of going through, getting ready for my sort of acceptance speech. Just how many people help you along the way. I mean, like David McDabb was in Anaheim, and he was, mostly responsible for drafting me. And we think back to all the different players that helped me, and then you end up getting to Carolina along the way, and Peter Laviolette and Jim Rutherford. And you think about all the players, and I learned so much from like a guy like Paul Kariya. He was my roommate on the road the first 5 years of my career. And talk about a person that was ahead of his time in his preparation and the way he does things. So I got to witness that. I'd talk about how hard I used to work, but then I would come to the rink and I'd see Paul, what he did. And I was like, this guy's on another planet. I mean, he's just a different level of preparation and detail. And obviously just an unbelievably talented player. But so I was kind of lucky. I got sort of around guys like Paul, like Brett Hedican in Carolina, Ray Whitney, and Roddy Brindamore and Eric Stahl. Like, there was so many guys early in my career that had such a big impact that You just kind of around guys like that, and they're just different levels of greatness in different parts of the game. And you kind of, I guess I learned to observe a lot and learn a lot. And I just kind of picked up so many things from watching these guys. And this was all early enough in my career that it really impacted me later because I could kind of take what I learned and apply it.
Right, and bank all that information. You hoist the Stanley Cup in 2006. What was the feeling like, and just being surrounded by your family too, to get to watch that whole experience?
It was just an unreal experience, just, going into that season. But excuse me, I'd been in the league for like probably 8 years already. I had 5.5 in Anaheim and 2.5 in Florida, and none of those teams really played deep into the playoffs. So, it was kind of my first experience getting to go on a run and playing in high stakes games. And we had a team that was picked to finish 30th that year, actually going into the season out of 30 teams. And Jim Rutherford put together a team with guys like Brett Hedican and Corey Stillman and Ray Whitney and Justin Williams and Eric Stahl and Roddy Brindamore, among others. And it was just like a year where everything worked. It was just like kind of like a magical run where everything came together, and we ended up having an awesome year. It was, the new rules were in place coming out of the lockout. So it was an entirely new game. It was a skilled game. We had a really fun team to play on. It was just high tempo, fun hockey. Labby was just an awesome coach. We played just a fun style of game. I just remember talking to my dad at home saying, I've never had so much fun coming to the rink. And we just went on. We won in Game 7 at home, which is just like, I'll never, ever, ever forget that one. The fans stood the whole game. I was against the Oilers, who I grew up just loving. So it was just like a surreal experience, the whole thing. And it was just one of those things you was just not expected. So you just loved every minute of it. And it was great.
So I have to ask, growing up in Minnesota, you were an Oiler fan?
I was actually. Well, the North Stars left,
Right.
So I grew up watching the North Stars, and then they left, and then we all kind of were,
You're a free agent.
Yeah, we were free
Pick whoever you want.
And they had this 99 on the Oilers, who I was kind of a fan of. So I think probably everybody growing up at that era loved the Oilers. And I wasn't a huge Penguins fan after they beat the North Stars in the finals, so that kind of turned me on that a little bit. So, just loved the Oilers, yeah.
But you became a Penguins fan. and you win 2 Stanley Cups there. How different was the experience in 2016 and 17 versus 2006? I'm sure you have kids at this point, and you're also seeing it not just through the eyes of your family who have been watching you all along, but the family that you then built.
Mm-hmm. It was a totally different experience. Number one, having the boys there made it just so much more. It was just an entirely different time of life, and it was 10 years later. So you sure learn to appreciate what you had 10 years ago. And I went to Pittsburgh not, with no real expectations. I had expected to retire that summer previously. And when Jim called with the opportunity, it was just such a cool opportunity. And so we jumped on it and didn't have super high expectations. We were out of the playoffs at Christmas. And then changed coaches. Mike Sullivan came in. And we really got some good traction, brought in some fresh young guys like a Brian Rust and Connor Sheary and some of these guys that had huge impacts, Matt Murray. And then it was just like there was probably, when I look back at that team, that last half of the year, that was probably some of the very best hockey I've ever seen a team play. Like it was just really, really good hockey. We were just a really good, deep team. Fun, just felt like we were like a half a step faster than most other teams. We played the game at a super high pace, and obviously Sid and Gino were playing at an extremely high level, and that was fun. The whole thing was like, it was kind of a little bit unexpected, but when we went through it and when we finally won it, it was a different level of appreciation because, the first time through it, it was all kind of new and just no expectations. This time through it, I had a different level of appreciation for how hard it is. And it had been 10 years and I had been in the league for quite a while. And so it was really, really meaningful, and sharing with my boys who were old enough to know what was going on and loved the game and were super invested. That made it just added a whole nother layer to it.
Take me through that summer. You were contemplating retirement and Jim calls. What'd you have left in the tank at that point? What'd you think you had left in the tank?
Yeah, so we had just come out of a couple years in Nashville. That were great years, playoff years, but just not like for me statistically awesome years. And I was 39, I want to say. And, just, didn't have super high expectations going into the summer, and kind of was content with looking back on a career, and would have been okay with being done and settling down at home. And, yeah, I mean, Jim's a hard guy to say no to, number one. And number two, I just had just such a trust level in him, and a loyalty, I guess, to him, and an appreciation for everything he'd done for me. And, um, yeah, and it was just, like, I credit my wife. She was like, "Hey, let's go." Like, you kind of wonder when you're 39 and you've been in the league for a long time and we move around a lot. It would have been easy for her to say, "Gosh, I think we should probably settle down," and it would have been hard to argue. And, yeah, I mean, we just had an unreal opportunity, and we kind of just approached it like, all right, this will be the last year and we'll make the most of it. And we did the boys did their school at the Penguins training center was brand new that year. So we put our three boys, and Trevor Daly, his boy, was in there, and they did school at the rink. And, they'd skate on the ice after we got off from practice, and they'd eat
Wow.
lunch at the rink. Team chefs were around. So, so the boys would get, lunch made by the team chef. And I mean, they were living the dream big time.
And then front row seats to two of the best teams that we've seen this century.
Totally. It was so fun. That experience, like for me, and I know Trevor would probably say the same, like it was so, like, just later in your career, being able to see your kids before you hop on the plane to go on a road trip, and having them on the ice, and they'd come in the locker room after practice, and, Sully and Jim and the whole organization just kind of let them run wild at the rink. And I mean, it just made the whole thing, it was like reminded me of growing up around the high school team when I was a kid. And so being able to share it with the boys was great. You miss out on a lot, when you're playing, you're traveling, you miss out on a lot. Game days are important. You have your routines. And so just to be able to kind of involve them in a little bit more of that, and be around them more, it made it so much more fun for us. And, yeah, I mean, those are just some of the best memories.
If it was anyone other than Jim Cullen, might you have said no?
Yeah, possibly. Yes.
Man, it's so wild to think about what that might what might you have missed out on?
Yeah. It's just one of those experiences that kind of reaffirms, like in life, you have to take some chances, and you have to be willing to take a leap of faith every once in a while. And I think back to what it would have been like had we not. I mean, man, would never know, but what unbelievable experiences we were lucky enough to have just by jumping in with both feet.
So you don't just win 2 Stanley Cups with the Penguins, but then you go on to play a couple years additionally after that. When you get to 1,500 career games, when you retired, the 21st player to get there. We know your love of the game. We've talked about your roots and how all that came about. Is it possible to get there without that? Can you play that long without a deep passion for it?
I don't think so. I mean, in my experience, no. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get the most out of yourself if you don't love what you're doing, to be honest. Like, I loved it, but even loving the game as much as I did, they weren't all great days. I mean, there's a lot of hard, there's always guys looking to, I mean, there's every player in the country and wants to be in the NHL, and there's always young guys coming in, and there's always quality players around looking to take your spot. And I mean, I just have a hard time believing you could do it if you didn't love it. I just don't see how you could. I mean, it's the best league in the world, and it's the most fun game to play. Like, you watch the NHL, and the level of play is just, there's just nothing like it. So yeah, I just don't believe you could do it if you don't love it. You could probably do it if you don't love it for a short term, but I just don't think you could do it long term without loving what you do.
Yeah, I've been torn on this because my working theory is that there's only a really small percentage of the league that actually loves it like you did.
Sure.
And that's not to pump your tires, just to say that I think there's a lot of guys that are really good that like it. And I bet every year there's greater than 20% of the league that's just absolutely miserable the whole time. Do you think that's fair?
I think it's fair. I think it's really hard. I mean, I think the fun stuff is better than any fun stuff, like the games and when you're having success, when you're scoring, it's the best. And I think everybody loves the game when it's going well, but I think the guys that separate themselves are the ones that love the game and are still committed to it when it's not going well. And that's the part that it's hard to prepare for. And you don't really find out kind of like what you're made of until you go through that. And I think when you go through that adversity, and if you can find a way to say, I still love what I'm doing. I don't love this right now, but I love the game, and I like, I'm committed to seeing what I can do. I think that sort of love that leads to just unwavering commitment. I think that's probably a different level of loving the game. And that's, I had that. I watch guys like Sid, and he undoubtedly has that, and Paul Kariya, and I mean, Roddy Brindamore. And I mean, these guys that I learned so much from, like, they love the game no matter what. And a lot of people love the game when it's going great.
You also need a lot to go right. You need your body to stay healthy and cooperate. And then there's the mental part of it. It's not just the love of it, but think about your career arc. You came in, you're trying to find a spot, then you've got a spot and you've got to keep it. But then toward the end, you're probably, if you're contemplating retirement with your wife, at some point that filters into your mindset and you go, do I still have it? Can I still do this? How did you maintain that level of confidence as you went along?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's like the probably the biggest challenge to anybody going through like the arc of their career is, I remember playing with Jaromir Jagr, who, is one of the most gifted players ever to play the game, and I remember him talking about lacking confidence, and I remember thinking, man, if Jaromir Jagr can lack confidence, among other guys, it's like how we all do, like it's a fact of life in the game. And I think just learning to sort of navigate all that, that's kind of a separator, like we all go through tough times in the game. And I think the guys that can navigate out of it, but not just like navigate out of it, but find ways to get better through it, learn from that and say, all right, well, what's causing this? And then try to figure out a way to add to your game or improve your game, so that I think that's where your confidence comes from, is the work that you put in and the improvement that you make. So that was, yeah, I just felt like that was something that I learned, and I was fortunate enough to learn from some really good people. And that's the other piece to it. When you look back on a career, like, you can't do it alone. Like, you think back on all the people that helped you through tough times. And I mean, you did different layers and different styles of leadership through all players that I played with that helped me along the way. Your appreciation for that is just, it's hard to even describe, because you look back and you don't probably recognize it at the time. But when you look back, it's like, man, there's so many people that went out of their way to help me. Who knows where I would have been along the way without them.
Well, now you've signed up to be one of those guys to help the next generation of players. So as you're working in player development for the Pens, you could break down all the video you want and talk to a player about his game, but how much do you spend talking about stuff just exactly like this to kind of try and set them on the right path?
Yeah, I think like there's so many resources for the X's and O's nowadays, and I enjoy doing that and going through all that. Like, it's fun to try to go through the technical parts of a face-off, for example. But there's just so much more to it, and that's probably the most I can share with guys is through the experiences I had with dealing with difficulties and struggling through maybe not being the best one on the team all of a sudden, or struggling to find a role. I think probably through my experiences, I kind of lived them all. Like, I was a power play guy, I was a penalty kill guy, I was a guy that would never have seen the ice if we were ahead 2-1 late in the game early in my career, where late in my career I would be the guy that was probably on the ice then. So I kind of was able to live all the experiences of the game. And I've had 13 plus coaches throughout my career, maybe more than that, I don't know, but a lot of different experiences in the game. So I guess that's a long way of just saying I really enjoy sharing those experiences with the kids, and trying to help them see the big picture, because when you're young and you're in the league, every day is like the end of the world. And if you have a bad practice, you go home and you feel sick to your stomach, or if you have a bad game or make a mistake or you get scratched, man, it feels like the world is ending, because it's your world, you're all in on it, and you don't really have much when you're younger. You don't go home to kids that take your mind off it. So being able to sort of help with some of that perspective, and helping shift mindsets towards maximizing where you're at, and recognizing, hey, you're still in the NHL, you got a great opportunity ahead of you. How do you make the most of it? Those sorts of things I think are super valuable. And I had guys that helped me with that, and now I can look back with the experiences I had and try to share that.
That probably also sets you up in a way as the perfect hockey dad. What's it like watching your boys go through this and get a lot of the same experiences so far that you did? I know your son Brooks is playing at the same high school you did, and to kind of see all of this again, Do you think back to what the experiences were like with your dad, and now is your dad also getting to see this as well?
Yeah. Yeah, so he's grandpa, so he gets to be, he gets to see it, and he has a couple good laughs at me being hockey dad now, and he gets to be on the other side and just be grandpa, and, I'll be like, I absolutely just love doing it. I kinda retired, and I was like, that's gonna be my priority, is just being home with the boys, and if, being as involved as I can be and as involved as they would want me to be, and so yeah, I've enjoyed. I've coached their teams going up, and it's all here at home where I grew up, so it's a lot of familiar, comfortable stuff, and things have changed a lot for these guys. They play, I mean, almost year round, so the landscape has changed a lot. So I've learned a lot, but I've actually found I've learned a lot about the game just trying to coach it to younger kids. I've really enjoyed trying to, like, you kind of see it through the NHL lens for so long. It's fun going back to the foundation of the game and trying to teach them, sort of like my dad did, like the ideas of the game, and concepts that help them see the ice a little bit differently, as opposed to just X's and O's and here's where you go stand. So I've really enjoyed that. I think it's showed a different side of the game to me, and I appreciate a different side of the game, but I just absolutely love being there for my boys. I mean, I love seeing how much they love the game. And it's just fun seeing them go through it, and they're having fun doing it. And like, there's nothing I'd rather be doing.
Are you tending to the backyard rink now?
Well, yeah, this is the first year that I have not. I've done it for 5 years probably, and I'd say I'm a below average rink maintenance guy. But I like doing it. I like getting out there with them. We'd play at night. The games have gotten a lot harder for me as they've gotten a little older. I got to work harder than I'd like to win. But I love doing it. I always used to laugh at guys on their riding lawnmower mowing the lawns in the summer, and I'd be like, I just could never be that guy. But then I'm that guy out in the rink with the hose in my hand flooding, and I love that. I absolutely love that. There's just nothing like that, being out on the rink in the backyard. And so yeah, I've done it every year. This year I didn't do it. My wife and middle son are in Michigan. He's playing in Michigan this year, so it's been a unique year that way. So didn't have the time to do it, so I'm kind of down on myself for that. But it's fun though. I love that.
And great memories. So I'll leave you with this. You're a hockey dad, you're a player development coach, but you're also still a young man at 48. What's next for Matt Cullen?
I don't know. I love being around the game. I don't have a lot else to offer other than the game of hockey. I just love it. It's been my life. So I enjoy all of it. I really do. And right now I'm committed to being with the boys, and I'm thankful the Penguins have been really great at allowing me to commit time to them, and then also work with the Penguins when I can and when the schedule allows. So I'm super appreciative of that, and I enjoy that. I love it, and I love where the NHL game is right now. It's such a skilled, fun game to watch. I mean, it's just like, it's never been better, and it's just awesome. So I love being a part of it. To answer the question, I don't know. I probably would like to stay in the game as I get a little bit older, and as the boys, move on to their own phases of their career where I just can become dad. But right now it's fun. I can help them and be involved in their lives, and while they're home, I love being here with them, and I guess we'll see where it takes me next.
Yeah, that's the exciting part. Matt, thank you so much for your time. I know I kept you long, but really great to unpack your career and now to see all the different phases of it and what you're about to embark on next. So thanks so much, and congratulations again on your U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame.
All right. Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate it. Fun talking with you.
Big thanks to Matt Cullen for his time. I told him 15 or 20 minutes, but then I got rolling and thinking about all the different facets of his career, and man, it was a really enjoyable conversation. Huge shout out as well to Dave Fisher of USA Hockey for helping arrange all of this, just on the heels of Cullen's induction to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, which, as mentioned, is just down the road from where he grew up in Eveleth, Minnesota. It'll be really cool for him to get a chance, a place that he once visited as a kid, to now go back and see himself enshrined there in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Incredible career, incredible conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Matt Cullen does next. One thing that we didn't hint at, he's a part owner of the Fargo Force in the USHL. So he has spent a little bit of time just on the other side of the border in North Dakota. around the team, around the rink, part of the decision-making process. And so obviously Matt Cullen has a ton to offer, and perhaps you never know, when his boys get a little bit older, if he wants to branch out a little bit back at the NHL level, whether it's coaching, I could definitely see a future for Matt Cullen also in management. Just that dedication, that love of the game, that's what really shines through when you talk to him. That'll do it for this week's edition of Frankly Speaking, presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, bet on Betway. 19 plus. Please play responsibly and have a great holiday season.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.